answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
This is an ABC News special report.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We are coming on the air with breaking news. A U.S. official confirms to ABC News that it appears a U.S. fighter jet has been shot down by Iran. Now a search and rescue operations underway. Let's get to our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz. Martha, what do we know so far?
Well, Diane, what we do know is this was a two-seater aircraft. The pilot would be in front, the weapons systems officer would be in back, and this would be a very dramatic and very dangerous rescue. Iran's Revolutionary Guard saying that Iranian forces had shot down the U.S. fighter overnight, with Iranian state media releasing images of the wreckage of a jet and of an intact ejection seat. The IRGC said it was an F-35. But from the images that we do believe are credible but have not independently verified, it looks like an Air Force F-15. Now, U.S. pilots are trained in what is called SEER if they are shot down or have to eject over enemy territory. SEER stands for Survive, Evade, Resist, and Escape. The pilots, the navigator, of course, know that Iranians would be looking for them. In fact, Iran put out a message to shoot the pilots if they were found, and a reward was being offered.
But we have good news, at least for one pilot, confirming that one pilot has already been rescued. Where exactly it went down over Iran, not clear. How they were rescued, still not clear. A lot of that will be developing, and of course the other pilot will probably also be found if he's in that same area. Now, you've got to keep in mind, we want to continue to pray for all of our men and women in theater and downrange because they are all subject to any attacks. And Trump, of course, had said the other day that we have decimated Iran's ability. And there are those on the left. Listen to me, please. There are those on the left that are happy that one of our fighter jets was shot down. Period. Whether or not we get both crew members back. They don't care. They're glad to see, Trump lied to you. Listen, they have a lot of weapons still. We know that. And yes, their capability in Iran has been greatly, greatly diminished. But they still just need one lucky shot from time to time. It is a sad fact that we've got, quote, Americans that are glad to see this happen. Welcome to hour number one, Larry Connors USA. And if you hear some background noise, sounds like drilling, things that termites. We got massive termites in the building. You know, I think I heard one then. Well, if he comes in here, he's going to get himself smashed. If I don't do it, Jerome will do it. We're not going to allow them inside, but they make enough noise occasionally that they're going to come through. Please bear with us. We've still got a great program for you, as always. And reminding you with Larry Connors USA, you're going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. Every day. You'll walk away from each hour with more knowledge than you had as we began that hour. We're here every Monday through Friday from 6 to 8 for you. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, or Twitter. You might even see one of the termites behind me. If you see them, I'll turn around and knock the daylights out of it. And also reminding you, you can watch us on Larry Connors USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And everything goes up, including the noise of the termites, later on a podcast at NewsTalkSTL, Facebook, Twitter, and LarryConnorsUSA.com and Larry Connors USA Facebook. Later this hour, Richard Battle on faith, freedom, and America's moral crisis. On this Good Friday, we need to hear this message from Richard Battle coming up later in this hour. Next hour, how to get free federal dollars. You can get free money. Did you know you could do that? You get free money from the government? Some already know how to do it, and they've been doing it. That story in the next hour. But also in this hour, before we conclude, the story behind the story. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It actually happened on April 4th, which would be tomorrow, a Saturday. But since we're not on the air then, we're going to do that story behind the story today. That's coming up later. Let's go back to how ABC was talking about Trump's speech the other night, and in light of what just happened with one of our fighter jets.
The president's first primetime address since this war began, the president repeatedly touted how the U.S. military and its prowess has decimated the Iranian regime as well as its military, saying they have no Navy, they have no Air Force, that they have no anti-aircraft equipment. But what we have seen is, despite this sustained, continued U.S. military assault, Iran has maintained the ability to maneuver and to hit back. And so far, when we talk about the impact on U.S. troops in this war, there have been 13 U.S. troops killed so far, 348 troops who have been wounded so far in this conflict. And it also comes as the American people have been waiting to hear more from the president about how all of this could end.
That is ABC. And you heard how they were saying Trump is touted. Well, that is true, but they're saying it in the sense they want you to believe we should not have anyone else in danger. No jet should be shot down. No ship should be hit by anything from Iran. The reality is it's war, and they will continue as long as we're in the theater. And they are basically, I'm not going to say ABC is cheerleading those who want to see us suffer casualties, but I do know in their midst there probably many are. They are. You cannot deny that. Hegseth did step up yesterday and probably said, you need to sign this paper. U.S. Army Chief of Staff General Randy George to step down. NBC reporting.
Basically, this is Secretary Hegseth is going after people and has been since he was since he was confirmed into this job and sworn in. He goes after people who have any kind of ties to DEI, have any ties to the retired General Mark Milley and the previous administration, and that's where Randy George fell in here, the Army General. He worked directly as the senior military aide for the former Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. So the reality is he has been in the crosshairs with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth for some time. But I cannot stress to you enough the idea that the Secretary of Defense just fired the head of the Army, the four-star general in charge of the United States Army while the U.S. is at war, is for nothing to do with the war, by the way, is so beyond unorthodox.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We have decimated the leadership in Iran, from their leadership of the Ayatollahs all the way down to 7, 8, 9 deep in their military staff. And I don't hear that much from the left talking about what we've done to them. And when Hegseth turns around and fires the Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George, and two others who are on the line as well, I don't know all the details behind it, but a lot of it has to do with these folks were in charge when General Austin was serving as the head of the military and Secretary of Defense and going along with Joe Biden DEI programs. Now, maybe they did or did not want to go with it, but the bottom line is they did. And apparently after this much time, Hegseth has decided they need to go so we can improve morale and get more warriors on the front, not DEI members. And keep in mind, while he is an Army general, chief of staff, he's not in the field fighting, and he's not the only one responsible for what we do or do not do in Iran. But if you listen to NBC, that's exactly what's happening. And, of course, they bring in somebody on MS Now, an Atlantic columnist, Tom Nichols, who says, oh, my God, what have we done?
Sometimes it happens. A general and a SecDef just don't get along. That's not what's going on. Hegseth has been on a rolling purge of senior officers from the moment he got here, got to the Pentagon. That's really concerning because there needs to be some guidance behind that. And I do think you need to explain to the American people, look, I'm cleaning out these officers because I want officers that have more of a certain kind of skill or more of a certain kind of background. And instead, it seems like this is in particular an animus against the Army, which, Hegseth has some pretty bitter feelings about as a passed over major who later said that the Army literally, he wrote that it spit him out. and also against kind of the American high command in general. This goes back to the day when he dragged 800 generals and admirals into an auditorium and, said, new sheriff in town, everybody's got to lose weight. So I think this is a real concern about what kind of political project here is causing, or personal issue for that matter, is causing Hegseth to try to clean out these top ranks. It's really disturbing, and it's especially disturbing when we're in the middle of a war.
Yeah. And there's Tom Nichols. I had no idea he ever served our country in the military. But he likes to use the term that Hegseth dragged all of these generals into a meeting and ordered them to shape up or ship out. So be it. But he won't say, I don't know if it's political or personal, because maybe he got passed over rank when he thought he should have had it. Bottom line is, we want a good fighting force. And there's no doubt that some of these that have been removed were involved in the DEI push forward by Biden through General Austin and others. And apparently they may still harbor some of those same thoughts. Well, Hegseth says we're done with that. But they want you to believe he's doing it in the middle of a war. What is going to happen to our military when he takes out these top commanders at that level? They are not directly involved anyway. They may or may not have a role to any extent. But do not believe the lies from the left that this is going to hurt our troops in the field. If anything, this is going to lift morale of troops. And yes, the U.S. continues, along with Israel, to pound Iran.
Well, the U.S. and Israel have carried out widespread airstrikes across Iran just hours after President Trump repeated the threat to bomb the country back to the Stone Ages. A key bridge near Tehran was among the targets hit. Mr. Trump posted a video of its destruction, urging Iran to agree a ceasefire deal before it's too late. And 100 experts in international law have warned of serious violations by the U.S., Israel, and Iran in the war in the Middle East. They say that the initial attack was a clear breach of the UN Charter and also highlight the alarming language used by U.S. officials, including President Trump.
Oh, the alarming language. And 100 experts. They're all lackeys. They're condemning what Trump has said about Iran. And we look at what they were preparing to do, and we look at the missiles that they have amassed, and many they still have. We acknowledge that. Even if we got 90%, there's still 10% there. We have stopped them continuing to enrich uranium at this point, but they would start up again if we let up. So, yes, we continue to pound. And Trump had made that clear in his message the other day. We're still giving you an off-ramp to peace. But otherwise, we're going to start going after your infrastructure, and it's going to cripple the nation and unfortunately hurt the people even more. Not that the Ayatollahs and the leaders care about the, quote, population. They've been slaughtering them, killing 700 over recent days just because. But cutting off this main bridge and hitting some other facilities, it is going to hurt the Iranian people. And that's not intended, but it will happen. We're not hitting civilian targets, but we're going to carry this out. You know, previously I pointed out the absurdity that U.S. forces are not allowed to carry weapons on base, be it here in the U.S. and sometimes even foreign bases. The Secretary of War says that's also changing.
Before today, most people probably don't know this, it was virtually impossible for War Department personnel to get permission to carry and store their own personal weapons aligned with the state laws where we operate our installations. I mean, effectively, our bases across the country were gun-free zones. Unless you're training or unless you are a military policeman, you couldn't bring your own firearm for your own personal protection onto post. Well, that's no longer. The memo I'm signing today directs installation commanders to allow requests for personal protection to carry a privately owned firearm, with the presumption that it is necessary for personal protection. If a request is for some reason denied, the reason for that denial will be in writing and will explain in detail the basis for that direction. Again, the presumption is service members will be able to have their Second Amendment right on post. Not all enemies are foreign, nor are they all outside our borders. Some are domestic. Confirming your God-given right to self-protection is what I'm signing into action today. today, and I'm proud to do so.
Good, good, good. Now, he's talking about if you want to carry your private weapon onto the base. And, of course, they have military weapons there. They could have some of those if they would allow them. Now, I do not want to hear from those who say, oh, my God, they could all be shooting at each other. Do you not understand that when they go, quote, to war, they all have a weapon? And aside from that, look at our police departments. Do you think every police officer, once they go into the station, they've got to lock their weapon away? Now, if they're going in to interview someone or some situation like that, they do put their weapon away if they're going into jail. But inside the police department, the officers who are armed remain armed. Don't have mass shootings, do we? And I pointed out the other day in the story behind this story, the Fort Hood shooting in 2009. 13 killed, 40 injured by a psychiatrist who went jihadist. He supported jihad. And he just started taking them out, and they had no way to stop him. It took a civilian police officer, a female police officer, to get on that base to put a stop to it. Military police were there, but they couldn't find him in time. She got on base to help them, and she found him, and she stopped him, along with the help of another civilian officer. If you're in the military, you are already authorized and trained to use a weapon. Why the hell are we making it, as Pete Hegseth said, gun-free zones, killing zones, on our bases? And that includes the recruitment offices. Remember the one that got shot out, the Marine recruitment office? They had no way to respond and protect themselves? That was just stupidity. We're coming around to, quote, common sense. And this will protect American troops, men and women. If someone goes berserk, there'll be others there to put them down. They don't have to wait for the police to arrive. It just has irritated me forever that we train our forces to how to use weapons, then we will not give them the weapon when they might need it, even on a base. And it does take away their Second Amendment rights. Coming up on this Good Friday, Richard Battle on the faith, freedom, and America's moral crisis. You do not want to miss this interview. And our story behind the story, assassinating MLK Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. That's our story behind the story. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, you know, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? You need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Andersen, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAndersen.com. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as Support Dogs for Our Brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, here we are on Good Friday going into Easter, and we were trying to book this guest yesterday, and we had some difficulties, but glad to have him on board today. He's author of several books you might have seen and read, and see him on various other programs. Has his book titled Surviving Grief by God's Grace, and also his American book series, Americans Who Made America. Richard Battle. Richard, glad to have you on board with us, sir.
Good morning, Larry. Thank you so much for having us with you.
Well, I wanted to definitely have you as we go into Easter, because I know you've been talking about faith, freedom, and America's moral crisis. Go ahead, sir.
Well, our country was founded by people searching for the free expression of their faith. And we had colonies before the country was founded that had their state or colony faith, if you will. Massachusetts was Congregationalist. You had Rhode Island was Baptist. Maryland was Catholic. And when we founded the country, they didn't want a single denomination. And so that was the reason the First Amendment said no establishment of a religion, because they didn't want a single Christian religion, but our founders were Christian and Judeo-Christian based. And I'm a believer that our freedom, individual freedom, and our free expression of our faith are intertwined. We get both or we get neither.
Now, you know what happens for many, I should say for some. When you talk about Judeo-Christian, well, the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Muslims, they'll say, so you're not including me. That's not what we're saying.
Well, it's not, and we've had over our history, I think we've been primarily a Christian nation from principles, but we have not prevented other people from being here, and I think that's a difference, and they do not have to come here. If they can find a better place to express their faith, you know, God bless them, let them go there. But I think the Christian and Judeo-Christian expression is very tolerant of other beliefs. In fact, tolerant to the point that we allow people who disagree with us and who want to kill us to show up.
Yeah, and there is the distinction. I mean, they're allowed to practice their own faith. We don't make them adhere to ours, as long as their faith does not involve killing members of our faith simply because of faith.
That's exactly correct. And what we've done the last generation or two is we've been so tolerant that we've given up pieces of our principles so we wouldn't offend other people. And part of that comes from tolerance, and part of it comes from people drifting away from the faith and not holding it as dearly and as respecting it as much as we did before.
I want to share something with you and the audience. I've never told the audience this. So this it kind of ties to your book, Surviving Grief by God's Grace, your personal dimension on reference your religion. I know growing up, I had some Jewish friends, and I had elders that would tell me that, well, you know, if they don't believe in Christ, they're not going to heaven. I do understand the concept of that now. At the time, I didn't, and I thought, well, they're good people. Why? Surely God has grace to allow them a last chance to believe in Christ at that point. That aside, not trying to make this a theological discussion, my thought was that that's why Jews hate Christ or put what they considered a man to death that they didn't think was Jesus anyway. But the bottom line is that, and I had a member of our church who had been born and had been Jew, but he became a Christian. I know many Jews who have become Christians. And I know some who had been raised Muslim, and they have converted to either Christianity or, well, I should say converted to Christianity.
Well, yes. And of course, Jesus was Jewish, our Savior, and the Jewish people are God's chosen people. And we're told in Genesis that he who blesses Israel will be blessed by God, and he who curses Israel will be cursed by God. And the Jews have been persecuted throughout history. They have a promise of a different eternity than Christians do, and they're waiting for the Messiah that they believe is still coming.
Right.
And we, as the United States, because of that scriptural command, have always supported Israel because we feel it's our duty to do so. And I think part of the anti-Semitism we see evolving and coming out more now, it comes from that tolerance of anti-Semitism and, again, a drift away from our biblical leanings.
And you point out that anti-Semitism should alarm every American, be you Jewish or Christian.
Well, there's anti-Semitism mostly coming from non-Christians, but unfortunately, too many Christians today don't understand why it's so important to support the Jewish people and their importance in God's plan for the future.
And you mentioned the persecution of the Jews. That was often brought on, if you go through the Old Testament, as you well know, and I know many of the listeners do, because the Jews turned their back on what God told them to do. But he would always save a remnant to go forward.
Well, that's correct. And it's interesting when we read the Jewish people would come back to God, and then they'd drift away, and he'd punish them. And then they'd come back, and they'd drift away. And they had that cycle over and over and over again. And we read about them, and we think, how could they do that? But I think it's very common for generation after generation of people, non-Jewish people, to do the same thing.
And Christians, I mean, if you worship money, you're worshiping an idol. Or if you worship sex or things of that nature, you're worshiping an idol, not Jesus Christ and God. Now, Jesus Christ, resurrection, Sunday, that is such a high holy day for Christians, and even Jews recognize the value. And we're in the middle of Passover for Jews right now.
Yes, and Easter, to me, that's the most important date in the history of mankind, because his physical resurrection from the dead as the first fruit, if you will, and his ascension 40 days later into heaven, where we believe he sits alive at the right hand of God, is very unique. We're the only faith, if you will, that we have no responsibilities except to believe. He's done everything else with his sacrifice. Every other faith, people have to try to do things to earn salvation, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that's a very important thing, that we have to appreciate that gift we've been given.
Yeah, if you look at the rules of the Torah and other things of that nature, I would fall way short. I could never make peace or approach God. Jesus' death and sacrifice for us gives us that opportunity.
Well, yes, and it says in Romans 3, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. None of us measure up, and since none of us can measure up, we all have to take that grace that was given to us by believing.
And in fact, it's like God looking at us and allowing it. Of course, we don't see him, but he allows us to reach through Jesus Christ, and we appear as clean as fresh-driven snow.
Thank God for that, because since none of us would qualify, we would have a hopeless life, much like the Muslims. No matter what they do, there's never anything they can do where they have an assurance of salvation. With Christianity, we believe, and even if we've fallen short in sin, we believe that he will forgive those sins when we confess, repent, and return to him and give us that eternal life.
But others, be they Muslim or whatever, say, you don't, where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? I don't see him. It's a matter of faith, and we don't see him at this point, and faith is built upon simply that, belief.
Yes, it's a faith in what we do not see yet, and we get more credit for believing without seeing than those that believed by seeing, and that's very important. The faith comes from our heart and spirit. That's the main thing.
So when we go through this Easter, where we are now in our nation, and I'm not talking about the world conflict, in our nation, will we go through this Easter and see better times, more people beginning? I'm seeing polls that show more young men actually want to return to the faith.
Well, I hope so, and I see things like that as well, and we need an awakening in this country, and I'm heartened when I see people speaking out more in public now than we've seen in a generation or so, and referring to Jesus Christ and referring to our faith as part of our public leadership, if you will. And others will not like that, but they are people that would not like the mention of Jesus or his presence anywhere else either. And so I think we who believe, who I think are the majority of the country, have to step up and be examples and encouragers for others.
Amen. Wishing you a most blessed Easter, Richard.
Thank you very much, and God bless America.
God bless America. Richard Battle, author of the series Americans Who Made America, and his book, Surviving Grief by God's Grace. Tomorrow marks the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. So that is our story behind the story when we continue.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website NapoliSTL.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. True comfort is something you should feel every day in your home. It's the quiet of your mornings, the consistency of your indoor temperature, the way your home feels season after season. With Renewal by Anderson, from consultation through installation, everything is handled by one experienced team, built around your home, your schedule. Our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, built for extreme temperatures. And right now, you can save 20% off your entire project. Plus, take an additional $100 off every window and door, up to $1,000. 20% off the entire project. Flexible financing is available, but you need to call by April 30th. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. 877-WINDOWS. RenewalByAnderson.com. When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
On April 4, 1968, at 6:01 p.m., James Earl Ray, a white drifter and petty criminal, raised a bathroom window at the rear of the Bessie Brewer's rooming house on South Main Street in Memphis, Tennessee, and aimed a Remington Model 760 rifle across the street at the Lorraine Motel. When he saw Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. step onto the balcony of room 306, he pulled the trigger. A fraction of a second later, a single .30 caliber bullet from his weapon struck the civil rights leader in the head. At 7:05 p.m., doctors at St. Joseph's Hospital pronounced Dr. King dead. He was only 39 years old. As word of the tragedy spread throughout Memphis, a pall of shock and sadness blanketed the black community. Anguish soon turned to anger. Fearing a riot, the Memphis police went on high alert, but calm prevailed. Local civil rights activists, who for the past 2 months had been leading a full-scale grassroots mobilization to support striking black sanitation workers, channeled raw emotions into peaceful marches and public remembrances. Nonviolence, however, did not win out everywhere. 172 American cities exploded in the days following Dr. King's assassination.
That was as it was known at that time and told about the King assassination. On April 4, 1968, 6:01 Central Standard Time that evening. That would be tomorrow. The American civil rights leader fatally shot while at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. That's a fact. It's a fact he was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital where he was pronounced dead at 7:05 at age 39. What has been a disputed fact was James Earl Ray, the guy who did it. And James Earl Ray had been pulled into custody quickly and did confess, but then later recanted the confession. So there's a lot of background around this story that still to this day, much like the assassination of JFK, that has questions about it. You're entitled, obviously, to believe what you believe. For a period of time, the King family and others, and maybe still do, believe that the assassination was a result of a conspiracy involving the U.S. government, the mafia, and Memphis police. That was prominent shortly after his death and for some time since. The jury at one point, the government agencies could not defend themselves or respond because they weren't named as defendants in a trial, a wrongful death lawsuit filed by a guy by the name of Lloyd Jewers in 1993 for $10 million, both sides presenting evidence. But based on the evidence, the jury concluded that the Jawas and the others were part of a conspiracy to kill King and awarded his family the symbolic $100 they requested in damages. The allegations and finding of the Memphis jury later disputed by the U.S. Department of Justice in 2000 for lack of evidence. Now, that assassination was one of 4 in the 1960s. You had the assassination of JFK, 1963. The assassination of Malcolm X, 1965. 2 months before, the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy in June 1968. Now, in the 1950s, King had already received death threats because of his prominence in the civil rights movement, and he confronted his risk of death on a daily basis. And in 1958, there was an attempt to stab him. He said, I told my wife it's going to happen to me. I keep telling you this is a sick society. That was in then where he was almost stabbed to death, but he survived it. He referred to a letter written by a young girl because he had made a reference that, good thing I sneezed at that point. It helped me avoid a fatal wound at that point. And she'd written back, I'm glad you did sneeze at that time. But then you jump ahead to April 4, 1968. And again, King was in Memphis trying to support the striking sanitation workers. Most of them were black, and even black and white, the blacks were being paid less than the white sanitation workers. That was his reason for being in Memphis.
Several thousand Negro demonstrators are participating in this largest civil rights demonstration ever in Memphis, Tennessee. Today, as the march moves up toward City Hall, Dr. Martin Luther King will speak to the striking workers and their sympathizers, now estimated somewhere between 5,000 and 8,000.
So I come to commend you, and I come also to say to you that in this struggle you have the absolute support, and that means financial support also of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference.
So he was there to help out, but he also admitted later that he was upset by the failure of the march. He left Memphis that following day, but then later returned on April 3rd. Their flight had actually been delayed by a bomb threat at that point. That's when he checked into the room 306 at the Lorraine Motel before leaving around noon to go to a meeting and planning to announce another march for April 5. There were some tornado warnings that afternoon, heavy rainfall. But King did manage to make it in time to a planned speech at the Mason Temple. About 2,000 were waiting for what would be Martin Luther King's last speech.
We've got to give ourselves to this struggle until the end. Nothing would be more tragic than to stop at this point in Memphis. I want to thank God once more for allowing me to be here with you. I left Atlanta this morning and then I got into Memphis. And some began to say the threats, talk about the threats that were out. What would happen to me from some of our sick white brothers. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing anything.
So that was the last speech by Martin Luther King Jr. As I said earlier, James Earl Ray, when arrested, confessed but later recanted. So there's a lot more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
We came across the courtyard about 6 o'clock. Pow. Would have hit him and severed his tie. Pow. It knocked him against this door. What you see is him lying here, his foot in this banister. Happened so fast. That's all I saw was blood just everywhere. It knocked him against the back of the hotel door. I remember somebody saying, get low, because whoever it was, if they sprayed bullets, they could hit 3 or 4 of us in the courtyard. There's a picture of Andy Young, and somebody we pointed that picture is, we were saying the police are coming to drone guns. The guns, the shot that came that way, go the way the shot came from. That's what that picture was all about. I hate to replay that moment. He died so young, so innocent, such moral authority. It hurts to think about it, talk about it.
That was Jesse Jackson, who was standing next to King when he was shot. James Earl Ray, later arrested across the street at the Lorraine Motel. James Earl Ray, born in Alton, Illinois, originally confessed, but then retracted it, and then later talked about what he saw had happened.
I was headed toward New Orleans when I had the radio, and I used to keep the radio, and I think I didn't have too strong feelings about the shooting.
When you met Raul, you didn't know any other name for him. That's the name that he said was his, and that's all you ever knew.
Yeah, I just know.
Mm-hmm. And you met him where?
Canada.
Up in Canada. And you just met in a saloon, or?
It was a saloon in the waterfront area of Montreal.
Mm-hmm. You never became good friends then?
No, I wasn't good friends. Mm-hmm. Just business. Mm-hmm. These were all aliases, I assume.
And you don't think Raul was a real name at all then?
No, I've got some Freedom of Information papers in there saying there's a Raul San Diego or something in New Orleans. It's supposed to be him, but I don't have the FBI. That's material from the FBI files, but I don't have nothing to substantiate that.
So you think their mind was made up when they got you?
Well, it had to be made up. They couldn't. Well, I don't know if there's any penalty for extraditing someone fraudulently or not, but I think I can see their legal point where they've got to stick with their story.
All right, so that's James Earl Ray talking about a guy named Raul, which no one could ever verify, and he said that he was implicit. Ray had escaped previously from Missouri State Penitentiary in 1967, and then after his first escape, he later arrived in Birmingham and ended up making another escape from prison and went to Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. But did he do the shooting? And was the gun that they say did the shooting, was it responsible? A former Shelby County judge, Joe Brown.
That Remington 760 Game Master they've got in the Civil Rights Museum is not the murder weapon. The thing the state relied upon was the rifle, but modern scientific methodology excluded that rifle from being the murder weapon. The bullet they pull out of King's body has a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 11 1/4 inches. The rifle that Ray had a rate of rifling twist of 1 turn in every 10 inches and a bad manufacturing defect that is not apparent on the death slug. He was shot with an XM21. It's a 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO caliber weapon with a special stainless steel barrel. The shot came from the dormitory in the fire station through a window that had been slightly parted.
And in fact, the window from the Lorraine Motel where Ray had supposedly fired, there'd been a tree limb through it. And Joe Brown said that could not have been the shooting spot.
Captain Tommy Smith, who retired as head of homicide for the Memphis Police Department, who was the first detective on the scene. He said the shot couldn't have been from the flop house. There was a limb about this thick growing diagonally through the window, and you couldn't even see the Lorraine Motel from that location. He said, I came back with crime scene in about an hour, and the whole tree had been cut down, and I found out there was a cut down order sent out to the sanitation department.
The U.S. 111th Military Intelligence Group were at Dr. King's location during the assassination for undisclosed reasons. The 20th.
So there are a lot of questions still. Did Ray do the shooting, and what weapon was actually used? But the summation was that King was dead. His last words were to a musician who was scheduled to perform that night at another planned event. As he was wounded and still trying to live, he said, Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord in the meeting tonight. And in response, the musician said, okay, I will. Take my hand, precious Lord, and play it pretty. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. on April 4th. Our second hour is still to come. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Let's be candid, honest. No out-of-state law firm can represent you better than Onder Law, O-N-D-E-R. Hometown roots, attorneys living right here with you and your family. When you suffer an injury because someone else was negligent, Onder Law will make sure the other party takes full responsibility. You'll get full compensation, not a backroom deal worked out with some insurance companies. And, of course, we're moving into the stormy season. And again, when you have a legitimate claim, you should be properly compensated. Onder Law does not toy around with adjusters, investigators, lawyers trained to cheat you of what is rightfully yours. Onder Law has already recovered millions for families across Missouri and Illinois. Onder wins. Not just a catchy phrase, it's a fact. So I'll repeat it. Onder wins. OnderLaw.com. O-N-D-E-R. Onderlaw.com wins.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
This is an important and long overdue objective. Just today in Los Angeles, we had a takedown. 8 individuals were arrested for allegedly bilking over $50 million of intended loss from our taxpayer monies. And yes, this includes leadership in state governments, our investigations do, because guess what? They are in many ways the actual conduit. They're letting it happen by not doing anything to stop these individuals stealing from the American people. And so you're going to see this Department of Justice pour all of our heart and soul into fraud cases all over this country for the foreseeable future.
Well, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, now replacing outgoing Attorney General, is now hitting the ground and running with Pam Bondi aside. She still holds the position. And, of course, the Attorney General that eventually will take her position does have to be confirmed by the Senate. But for right now, her assistant, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, is carrying the water for the government and for you, American people. And I like the fact that he's jumping into this right away. He said, you're going to see the Department of Justice with all of our heart and soul go into the fraud cases all across our country. This is not just Minneapolis and Somalians. This is California and a lot of other states, and that includes some red states, where people, regardless of their political affiliation, decide I can steal from the government and get away with it. And they have been. And some have been brought to justice. Many more need to be brought to justice. And we'll talk about more of that in a moment as far as one of the biggest things, and that is the Act Blue is a potential money laundering operation when they're supposedly trying to bring in everyone who they can to vote when, in fact, they should not be allowed to vote. All right, we'll get into it more details as we move forward. Welcome to hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, and reminding you every day we're here from 6 to 8 for you. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. Easy to do so. Go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, or Twitter. Larry Connors, USA, Rumble, or Facebook. And then if you miss anything, they are later posted as a podcast, video and audio, at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. I just have one request of you. If you listen at a later point or watch the video, please push share, send it on to others. You are a multiplying factor, and you're doing an excellent job at it, and I want to thank every one of you who have done it. Please continue to do that. Just as I also ask you to please continue to support our sponsors. They keep this program on the air. They're very important. Now, you might not need something a sponsor is offering for you, depending on what they have, and you just don't have a need for that right now. But when you do, or you know someone who does need something that a sponsor presents, direct them to our sponsors. Let them know how much you appreciate them supporting Larry Connors USA and NewsTalkSTL. With Larry Connors USA, you are always going to get news, analysis, commentary, and education. I promise you, you're going to get an education in each hour. You will know more by the end of each hour than you do as we begin. And in fact, before we finish this hour, do you know how to get free federal money? I mean, absolutely free money that you can get. Do you know you can do that? Well, you can, but there is a but. Yeah, there is a but. I'll give you details on that in our next segment coming up. But in the meantime, everything we see going on at what the Republicans are trying to do, the Democrats are constantly fighting it. Basically, all of them except Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman, who's a Democrat. He recognizes maybe we just need some common sense from time to time. Well, that's a fact. But then you also look at how the Democrats try to go against everything, and I mean everything, that the Republicans are trying to do. And, for instance, dealing with fraud. Stephen Miller of the White House.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the atrocity that is taking place in Congress with congressional Democrats fighting relentlessly to abolish the very federal agencies that are responsible for policing and investigating fraud, as well as all matters of homeland and national security. I see, of course, a new secretary who has just been confirmed to DHS, my good friend, Mark Wayne Mullen. He now takes command of a department whose men and women have been working without pay for weeks on end to protect and defend the American people, to protect and defend our coastlines, to protect and defend our families. Well, they've been treated with nothing but derision, hatred, and contempt by congressional Democrats. It is legislative terrorism. It is one of the greatest abominations that has ever occurred in the history of this country, and it's to the everlasting and eternal shame of the Democrat Party.
Did you hear what he said? Let it sink in. They are fighting against the men and women who are trying to protect our country. That's Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the like, and also against local law enforcement. And they're also fighting against any agencies or any group trying to uncover fraud. Why would you fight against uncovering fraud unless you're a recipient of that fraud? Or you're going to be active in it, or you already are active, or you have been in the past. Oh, I don't want them going down that road. I'm safe now. They didn't catch me the first time, and I've quit, so I should be good, right? No, you're not. It was in March last year that Republican lawmakers said they were going to start probing Act Blue as a potential money laundering operation. Several senior officials of Act Blue left, and they're saying they were having internal chaos, and it might have been they were running for the hills to get out of there before the door caught them. And again, it was March of last year that Congressman Comer of Kentucky claimed that Biden's administration covered up hundreds of suspicious activity reports for Act Blue. His oversight committee was investigating that platform over potential fraud. Congressman Biggs of Arizona at the time called for the FBI to investigate Act Blue regarding suspicious donations. His letter stated Act Blue had, quote, been used to skirt the integrity of federal campaign finance laws. That's cheating to vote. More recently, Judicial Watch filed a Freedom of Information Act against the FEC for all records, that'd be the Federal Election Commission, for all records connected to any alleged fraud by Act Blue. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton said there are legitimate, grave concerns Act Blue has enabled illegal fundraising. So Act Blue has been warned several times, and now the New York Times is reporting. The New York Times reported yesterday that a law firm working for Act Blue back in early 2025 was telling them you probably misled congressional leaders when it came to vetting foreign donations. Their own lawyer was telling them that. The New York Times says they're basing their article on internal legal memos, emails, resignation letters, and so forth, concluding that ActBlue's chief executive had given a potentially misleading response to congressional Republicans. Make that perjury and lying, not a misleading. That's perjury and lying, and he knew it. He knew it. And that was in a 2023 letter explaining how we vet donations to ensure they're not illegally coming from foreign citizens. It's carrying out supposedly multi-layered screenings to help root out those monies coming from overseas. But their firm, their law firm, Covington and Burling, said it persists and it is a substantial risk for your fundraising. In other words, somebody's going to be caught. Vice President Vance announcing the other day, just yesterday, federal enforcement now focusing on fraudsters who also allegedly stole more than $50 million by defrauding health care and hospice systems in California. So it's not just Minnesota. California, $50 million. They're going to start looking into it closer. Good. We want accountability. We want people jailed that have been active in stealing and lying. And part of the lie is that that's why you don't want the SAVE Act, because you're going to disenfranchise people. And this is a voter integrity issue. But useful idiot, Meryl Streep, actress, bought into the lie that married women might not be allowed to vote.
The Save America Act, if that passes, all the married women that have changed their names are going to have to go to the registrar and prove that they are who they are. In other words, to your voting registrar. This is what I understand. Otherwise, when you get to the voting booth in November, you might be disqualified because your name doesn't, on your birth certificate, doesn't match your name on the voting rolls. So everybody has to get... And this is such a pain in the neck because you have to go, but do it, because otherwise you'll be turned away. And I think that women need to be heard, especially in this time.
Well, she's speaking to an audience that loved those remarks. But as she said, as I understand, well, you understand incorrectly. You understand incorrectly. They're not going to be disenfranchised. But yeah, if they've married and they've changed and have a different last name, and the last name still appears on the voter rolls, they need to get that corrected. But did you hear her say that when you go to the polls in November, she didn't even mention the midterm coming up in summer. Even if you're going to vote in the midterm, you could have the situation. But you've got plenty of time to do that, to update your birth certificate information, not just your birth certificate, but your name. You don't have a birth certificate? Contact the Vital Records Office in your state or territory where you're born. You got plenty of time to get one. More than enough time, even for the primary. And if you're going to vote in the general election, you still have more than enough time. Oh, you can't wait the day before to do it. Of course not. So, yeah, you might be disenfranchised. If I go to the voter polls and they demand a voter ID, well, I don't have my driver's license with me. I don't have my passport. I have it at home. Well, until you come back with it, you can't vote. That's my stupidity. And I admire Meryl Streep for her acting ability, truly do. But her politics is absolutely upside down, and she is deep into the blue, hook, line, and sinker. And she's parroting the lie, you might not be able to vote, married women, if you got married and you have not changed your driver's license or anything. You do know that even if you move to another state and you get stopped by a trooper or a state or city officer and you have a address that shows you live in Florida, and yet you got stopped in Missouri and you say you live here now, well, if you've not changed your driver's license, that's technically a violation. Generally, you're not going to be ticketed for it. You might get a warning, but go get your ID changed so it reflects where you live. Yes, it's time-consuming and takes effort. You buy a car, you have to put plates on it. You have to go register the car. That's time-consuming. Some things are going to take time, but if it's worth it to you, you'll do it. If it's worth it to you to vote, which is a precious right, would you not go to the effort to do that if it's important to you? Or you just want to lay back in the back and swallow it and cry, oh, my God, I can't vote. Get off your damn butt and go take care of it. Or shut up. Or then again, if you're that kind of person, I'd rather you not vote. Just don't vote. Even if you are a, quote, conservative. If you're not going to take it seriously and truly look at what's involved and what's at stake, forget it. You just go in there and cast a ballot just because you hate Trump and cancel my ballot. That's what you'd be doing. But as far as getting identification, and keep in mind, Trump has also fought against birthright citizenship. Just because you're born here should not make you a U.S. citizen. He's pushed that forever. And, of course, all the pushback going on by the left, that's not right. That's not fair. I want you to hear from a senator and his remarks he made in 1993 regarding to end birthright citizenship for illegals.
If making it easy to be an illegal alien isn't enough, how about offering a reward for being an illegal immigrant? No sane country would do that. No. Right?
No.
Guess again. If you break our laws by entering this country without permission and give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship and guarantee of full access to all public and social services this society provides. And that's a lot of services. Is it any wonder that 2/3 of the babies born at taxpayer expense at county-run hospitals in Los Angeles are born to illegal alien mothers? Just when the American people think nothing can be more absurd than the way we deal, or rather don't deal, with illegal immigration, they discover that we have a political asylum system that would qualify us for Senator Proxmire's Golden Fleece Award 1,000 times over. I don't know why he didn't make this award. He should have.
Yeah. He wanted to get rid of the birth citizenship. Said it was wrong. And keep in mind, you could have them coming from China and Russia in the closing months of a pregnancy, get here, have their baby, and go back home, so-called anchor babies. He's talking in this case, though, also about illegals who come across and are in our nation illegally, and they have their baby. Well, their baby is considered a citizen, gets rights to everything you have. That includes benefits and everything else. 1993, that senator said this should not happen. You know who that was? 1993, that's Nevada Democrat Senator Harry Reid, saying no sane country would give these babies born here a citizenship simply because they're born here. That is a Democrat senator, of course, who's passed away, Harry Reid. It was his decision to introduce legislation to end birthright citizenship. Where's the left now? Well, they've absolutely turned their back on Harry Reid because they want the votes. And, of course, the free money. I told you could get free money from the federal government. But, yes, there is a catch. That story coming up. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. dustless blasting, or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com.
This is News Talk STL.
See, the ways of this world will just bring you to tears. Keep the Lord in your heart and you'll have nothing to fear. Live the best that you can and don't lie and don't steal. Keep your nose on the grindstone and out of the pills. Well, Daddy, I've been trying, I just can't catch a break. There's too much in this world that I can't seem to shake.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
This is an important and long overdue objective. Just today in Los Angeles, we had a takedown. 8 individuals were arrested for allegedly bilking over $50 million of intended loss from our taxpayer monies. And yes, this includes leadership in state governments, our investigations do, because guess what? They are in many ways the actual conduit. They're letting it happen by not doing anything to stop these individuals stealing from the American people. And so you're going to see this Department of Justice pour all of our heart and soul into fraud cases all over this country for the foreseeable future.
That is Stephen Miller talking about how we are going to be going after, I take it back, correction. That is our acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, now serving as the Attorney General because Pam Bondi has been released of her duties. She's still in position, and we don't have an official Attorney General until it goes through confirmation hearings. But he's talking about that we are going to go after all the fraud that we've seen already and uncover more fraud. I like it. I like it. We're going to see our Department of Justice with all of our heart and soul going to fraud cases all across the nation, as well we should. And some of it is right in front of us. What is happening in the Somalia community in Minnesota, right in the backyard of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and she's also facing fraud charges also by how she claims she has achieved various things when in fact she probably lied about it. You want to sue me? Hey, you listening to me, Omar? Go ahead and sue me. Go ahead. Get in line. You and AOC and all the rest of you guys on the squad, every one of them, every one of you, I dare you to stand up to the scrutiny of a full investigation. I dare you. The fraud has been rampant. And you know why? Because it was allowed. Look at the Joe Biden administration. I got so angry, and yet I withheld my anger to try to say it in a polite fashion to someone the other day. Who said, look at what all Trump is doing wrong. You know, I don't like him selling Bibles, Trump Bibles, gold-plated gold Trump Bibles. I said, I don't particularly like that either, but there's nothing wrong with it. Well, I don't like the way he's stealing from us and all the things he's making the money. I said, what is he stealing? What is it? Where is the money he's making? And, of course, you had the other day, the judge decided to stop at the White House. You cannot redo the White House. They've already torn down the East Wing, and suddenly the judge says, stop. So you want to leave it looking like that forever? Come on. And keep in mind, that's not even going to be building that new East Wing using federal tax dollars. Major corporations and major individual backers have said, we will pledge the money for our country, for the White House. I know someone will say, you're just trying to buy access to Trump. I'm not going to deny that if you're giving $1 billion to help rebuild part of the White House or whatever might be needed, you might have a chance to sit down and shake hands and maybe even have coffee with them. I'm not going to deny that could happen. But there is no quid pro quo as far as legislation. That is a key point. You can make alliances, but you don't have to be their puppet. And that's the key, which the Hunter Joe Biden family never understood, nor Hillary and Bill Clinton. They were always willing to come around like those little puppies looking for a teat to suck on. And I never heard the left complain and bring noise about it. They just kind of went along with it, didn't they? And all the taxpayers are being ripped off by money that they should be getting. They're being ripped off by people that should not be getting it. In fact, Stephen Miller of the White House says, most Americans think that those who are getting the money probably have it coming to them. It's not true.
I think what's important for Americans to understand about how pervasive and widespread the fraud is that all of our systems were set up and established for a high-trust society. I think that most citizens probably assume that there's some verification process that takes place for the receipt of most federal benefits. The reality is that there is not. This is particularly true in blue states, willfully true in blue states, in which all of these programs are operated entirely on the honor system. No verification takes place before individuals are enrolled in or receive these benefits.
No. I can go in and claim I'm someone, and I don't have to prove anything. They'll take me at my word. Or I can use a forged document, and they're not even going to bother going deeper to verify before they cut me a check. Once again, Stephen Miller.
If you're a Somali refugee living in Minnesota, you could lie about how many children you have. You could lie about what your immigration status is. You could lie about your marital status. You could lie about child care. You could lie about disability. You could lie about all these things and many more. And nobody in the state of Minnesota would validate any of these facts before writing you a check. We at the federal government are simply sent a bill from the state of Minnesota for the cost of providing these services in the aggregate.
Just going to cut you a check, and there it is. You lied. You lied every step of the way. Nobody bothered to check it. They're going to trust you. Would that individual that's cutting you the check or along the chain of cutting you a check, would they be willing to just turn their wallet and bank account over to you? Might as well. But what they're doing is stealing from Americans that deserve it. I cannot emphasize that enough. We're not just talking about the theft that takes place. It's the money that comes out of the pockets of Americans who could use it and those who are in need of it and truly are qualified to receive the assistance or whatever is needed. Now, Miller's focusing on what's happening in Somalia, or rather with the Somalian community. Might as well be a little Somalia, because that's where a lot of it's been uncovered. But that's not the only place. And one of the things he points to happens all over the nation. The SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition and Assistance Program.
So to take the food stamp program as an example, SNAP, and that, of course, is administered by Secretary Rollins, We do not know the names of any SNAP recipient in the state of Minnesota. We just get a blank check. We have asked the state repeatedly and tried to compel the state unsuccessfully to turn over their SNAP enrollment rolls so we could ascertain such basic facts as, are these people even legally eligible to receive these benefits? And the state has refused, absolutely categorically refused. And in fact, the state has spent millions of dollars in court for the singular purpose of trying to prevent the state from ascertaining the identity of a single SNAP recipient in the entire state of Minnesota.
Why? Why? Because it's fraud. And if they were to fully identify them, it would be evident it's fraud. And someone in the State Department, I should say the State of Minnesota Department, they're responsible for committing the fraud as well. And there may be a little kickback involved. I don't know, but if you're getting the money, they probably are going to get something. But this is a way for you can really get free federal dollars.
Think about what this does to public trust, social trust, people's faith in the system, right? Imagine in a community, a working class community in the Twin Cities, say a native Minnesotan who works as a lineman or works as a construction worker, works in any job that requires hard work, dedication, focus, who's worried about his ability to support for and provide his family. And then imagine that he has a neighbor who's a Somali refugee who arrived 2 years ago and has a Mercedes and no financial stress and no worries at all in the entire world and never seems to ever go to work at all because he just went to an office in the state, lied on a piece of paper, and got unlimited free money forever for life. That is the system that is being run, and that is the corruption that this task force under the leadership of the vice president is going to demolish.
Good. But I want to make sure you understand, we're not just talking about Somalians. We're not talking about illegals. We're not talking about Democrats only. And I don't know the political position of the guy I'm going to talk about next, but he's not Somalian. This is a retired master sergeant in the U.S. Air Force. He pled guilty this week to inflating the cost of information technology contracts for the U.S. Pacific Air Forces by at least $37 million. $37 million. He made money and his co-conspirators did. This 51-year-old master sergeant in the Air Force, retired, I should say, pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bribery, and conspiracy to rig bids in a federal court in Honolulu. We simply want to put an end to the fraud. I don't care who carries it out. I don't care if they had been in the military, served honorably, or they're in the military now, or they're in the middle of the legal department. I don't care who and where they are. If they're committing fraud against Americans, nail them down. Put them behind bars. Get whatever money you can back from them. No one held a gun to their head and said, you must go commit this crime. And they're stealing not just what you see in face value, but from those who could use it down the line. Coming up, a review of President Trump and his threat to Iran.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice. You have Under Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting, they will take care of that. You need some mold remediation, they can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington.
This is NewsTalkSTL.
Jesse got trapped in a coal mine, digging in the dark black pearl. Jesse got trapped in a coal mine, never did marry his girl. There ain't nowhere and there ain't no light, and there ain't no way to make it out alive. His wedding was planned for the 5th of July, but Jesse got trapped in a coal mine and never did marry his girl.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Yet if during this period of time no deal is made, we have our eyes on key targets. If there is no deal, we are going to hit each and every one of their electric generating plants very hard and probably simultaneously. We have not hit their oil, even though that's the easiest target of all, because it would not give them even a small chance of survival or rebuilding. But we could hit it, and it would be gone, and there's not a thing they could do about it. They have no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated. We are unstoppable as a military force.
Now, of course, Trump made those remarks the other night. We did have a fighter jet shot down overnight over Iran. One crew member rescued already, and they're searching for the other. We don't know the full report, and it will take a while to get details on what happened. But I'm hearing already some people say, well, see, Iran can still fight. Yeah, they can still fight. We don't have everything. Trump will talk about decimating leadership as well as weapons and radar and everything, but if they got one bullet, they're going to use it. Now they brought down the fighter jet. I don't know if it's going to be a missile. I don't know if it's going to be another fighter that they still had hidden away. I don't know if it's going to be... Bottom line is they still have teeth. Just because you knock out most of them doesn't mean they cannot bite. So keep our troops in theater and downrange in your prayers. Be they operating over Iran, along Iran, and the waterways nearby, or on bases of neighboring countries. Keep them in your prayers. South Carolina Senator Graham on what we're doing and what we're going to do.
Here's what President Trump said tonight. If you're in Iran, you better be listening. I'm willing to do a deal to make sure you don't become the largest state sponsor of terrorism again. I'm willing to do a deal that will allow you to exist under certain conditions. You have to change your behavior. But if you don't do a deal, I'm going to decimate your ability to come back economically. President Trump outlined targets that would destroy the ability of this regime to survive over time. If you don't take this deal, we're going to blow up all the things you need to come back. This was a defining moment in this campaign. He defined the end state. He set the objectives early on. We're inside the 10-yard line, and he's telling Iran how this movie ends. It's up to you. We could do it through diplomacy, and if you reject diplomacy, this will end with a decimation of your ability to ever come back economically.
And keep in mind that we've been hitting military targets. We could hit the oil right away. We did not do that. And now we're beginning to hit other targets. Trump had said, we will now turn our attention to other targets. You know, one of the latest overnight, we brought down one of Iran's biggest bridge near Tehran. 2 airstrikes on it. This is the B1 highway bridge, a link between the Iranian capital and a western city, considered to be the tallest in the Middle East. Opened only earlier this year, it is now broken apart. They'll try to rebuild it, obviously. And it's going to hurt the Iranian people. It will, for those who are on one side and trying to get to the other, or anything else involved, either in commerce or anything else they need. The Iranian people are suffering. We have been trying to avoid that. And apparently there were some civilians possibly killed when the bridge went down. But that wasn't the intent. If our intent were to go after the civilian population, we would have already done it. We could level everything in Iran, in Tehran, to no higher than a 3-foot rubble. We could. But that's not what we as a nation want to do. We want the Iranian people to have their country back under their leadership and to turn away from a leadership that wants to always cry out, kill America and kill Jews. I'm not into nation building. I've stated that over and over again. I do not want to continue doing that. Let the Iranian people make the decisions. I'm sure we have CIA operatives somewhere in the background doing something as well along that line. But the bottom line is they have a way to get off of this if they'll simply agree to, 1, give up all plans for any nuclear weapon in the future, and 2, turn over all their missiles, shut down all that effort. The Iranian people would probably like to, but if they dare say that, they're liable to be gunned down where they stand by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. That's what they're doing. Taking the bridge down is a major thing, and it's going to upset them, but so be it. On other subjects, the Supreme Court had rebuked California early in March for forcing schools to hide students' gender transitions from their parents. This is still a big case, and they're still looking at what's going to happen. And from the debate dominated by radical gender ideologues who insist on affirmation at any cost, it is changing. And public health officials are now beginning to show some change. There is no off-ramp for California and the real leftists. But last fall, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services published a review, Treatment for Pediatric Gender Dysphoria, arriving at the conclusion that medically transitioning minors conveys no proven benefits. Scientific reviews in Sweden and Finland and UK all say scale back on sex-rejecting interventions for children and adolescents. Help the kids, don't harm them more. Another study finding 63% of adolescents presenting with gender distress have had at least one co-occurring neurodevelopment disability or mental disorder. It is a mental illness for many of these kids. They think they will be better if they had a puberty blocker or a sex change. Well, in January, we saw some of the medical associations begin to turn. The CMS, cosmetic surgeons, they said we're not going to do it for any child under 19. I said they did that. Then the American Society of Plastic Surgeons issued a statement saying the same thing. They say all the policies we've been doing are rooted in academic queer theory, as they call it, queer theory rather than science. The AMA, the American Medical Association, is now following suit, saying the fake scientific consensus in favoring medically transitioning children is now shattered. But in some areas like California, that'll continue. There's a story I really did not touch earlier in the week. It's disgusting in so many ways. It involves Kristi Noem's husband. She's acknowledged it. She's acknowledged that this is true. It's not her, it's her husband. Brian Noem. There's a young woman who makes a living debasing herself in clients via webcam. She said that Brian Noem, husband of former Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, also a father to 3 children, paid up to $25 a minute, that'd be about $1,500 an hour, to have her dominate him on the video. She's a performer in what is known online as female domination. And the 56-year-old Brian Noem liked to play a submissive role. He wanted to have himself criticized by her. She said he was an extremely needy client. I've never seen another client appear on video with me, a man wearing fake breasts, ever. She says this was going on between Brian Noem and her webcam service with her for between 10 and 15 times. The last time about 6 months ago. Well, now it's been unveiled that he was appearing in various videos, reaching out to numerous women, appearing in a dress or something of that nature with fake breast. And he was sitting behind Kristi Noem every time she appeared in Congress to testify and to members of Congress. This is a devastating thing to Kristi Noem. There have been allegations that she and Corey Lewandowski had an affair outside her marriage anyway. Infidelity is wrong. But this guy, her husband, was sick. I could see why maybe she did turn to someone else, if she did. But his case is clearly documented, and he's the father of their kids. My God. Do you know what the First Lady, Melania Trump, has been doing? This is pretty amazing, and it's gotten no attention, none. I want to tell you about that in a moment, but first, I want to point out to you that despite all the cries from the left, and of course your gas prices are up a little bit right now, and they may go up a little bit more before we completely wrap up the Iran war. But if you listen to the left, Trump is destroying the country. I tell you what, he's still got us in better shape and headed toward a better future than Joe Biden did. But judging by some of the latest numbers, unemployment, the economy is still booming.
It's not what I think, it's what the facts show. When you look over the past year, manufacturing productivity has gone up to the highest level it's ever been. The past 2 months, we've had record-breaking export numbers for the United States, over $300 billion in exports in January and February. We've seen the trade deficit go down by 24% since April. So Americans are making more stuff, they're getting paid more to make it, and they're selling more of it overseas. So on every count, it's been a big win.
That's our U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer, and those last 2 months are documented record-breaking export numbers for the U.S. and more jobs. So now the latest figures have come in for March. And employment in our nation expanding by 178,000. The employment rate falling to 4.3%. It was 4.4. Now, that doesn't sound like a big difference, that 0.4 to 0.3, but it is big. And I'll be the first to say these numbers could be revised. But here's where they stand at this point. Construction employment jumping by 26,000. Manufacturing adding 15,000. Warehousing payrolls expanding by 21,000. Healthcare back with 76,000 workers returning to payrolls. And in fact, private payrolls expanded by 186,000 workers. Again, could these numbers be adjusted, as they often are? Might well be. But all of that looks positive. Does it not? Of course it does. I mentioned First Lady Melania Trump. Here's what she's been doing that you just have not heard much about, but I want you to know about it. During the Russia-Ukraine war, a lot of children have been taken out of Ukraine to Russia. Most of the Ukrainians had direct Russian descendants, and they would be easily integrated back into the Russian culture. But in some cases, these were not orphans. They were basically stolen, kidnapped by Russians, and taken back to Russia, taken from their families. And I'm talking about young children who might never know their mother and father, and maybe they've been killed, maybe they are orphans. But rather than being in Ukraine, they're taken to Russia. Melania just got a 7th child reunited with her family in Ukraine. She's been working with others to keep involved with Ukrainian and Russian officials trying to identify individuals who have been displaced during the war and reunite them with their families. Now, the phrase is displaced, but in many cases it may be they were not, quote, displaced. They were stolen and taken into Russia. And their families want their children back. The First Lady issued a statement. Reunifying children with their loved ones in this region of the world remains one of the most important global issues today. And I'm encouraged that both sides remain committed to ongoing cooperation, raising the safety and well-being of children above this abhorrent war. Do you see the left pointing out what Melania Trump and others have been doing? Reuniting children with their families for whatever reason they were separated. And as I said, in many cases, Ukrainian families were saying they're stealing our children, taking them into Russia. But there's an effort underway. Granted, this is only the 7th successful reunification out of hundreds, maybe thousands. But it is an effort and will benefit those children and their families down the road. Melania Trump is doing that. God bless her mission. May it continue to be successful and grow. On this Good Friday, I wish you and your family a most blessed Easter. As always, I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you sharing the word to others to be listening. And remember our pledge, one nation under God.